Okay, this just in, something new about Stonehenge. Well, not really Stonehenge, but if they told you Durrington Walls, you probably wouldn't key on it very much, so they have to attach it to Stonehenge, and why not? It's part of the whole complex that's around there with Stonehenge and Woodhenge and the causeways and everything. But Durrington Walls is another double walled area that it's kind of different. And man, if you've been with me for 2.5 years, you'll remember the video that I did about Halloween and Sam Hain, and talking about how that Stonehenge was really dedicated to the dead at the same time as being the calendar for everything and doing all that. But Durrington Walls seemed to be something that was for life, and that wood had to do with that, and so on, and stone, and so some things were symbolic. And it's just an esoteric type thing, an interpretation. But so vast Neolithic circle has been found of deep shafts found near Stonehenge, exclusive. Prehistoric structures spanning 1.2 miles in diameter is a masterpiece of engineering, say archaeologists. And here's just a look at one of the spots, I'm guessing here. And Stonehenge is not far away. It's just over there in the distance in the picture. We'll take a look at where we're looking at here. They say Durrington Walls in Wiltshire is located at the center of the newly discovered prehistoric site known as Durrington Shafts. And then, so it's all part of the Durrington complex that will probably starting to be called. A circle of deep shafts has been discovered near the World Heritage Site of Stonehenge, to the astonishment of archaeologists who have described it as the largest prehistoric structure ever found in Britain. And because of its size, all of a sudden it dwarfs itself. And though you look at Stonehenge and it's an incredible complex and a feat for people to have built and stuff, and its alignments are incredible, this thing is some 6 times larger or whatever. And so, largest ever can be shown about it, right? 4,500 years ago, the Neolithic peoples who constructed Stonehenge, a masterpiece of engineering, also dug a series of shafts aligned to form a circle spanning 1.2 miles, or roughly 2 kilometers, in diameter. The structure appears to have been a boundary guiding people to the sacred area, because Durrington Walls, one of Britain's largest henge monuments, is located precisely at its center. The site is 1.9 miles northeast of Stonehenge on Salisbury Plain, near Amesbury in Wiltshire. And I'm willing to bet if they broke it not of kilometers but went into feet, that it would probably have a sacred geometry number. But Durrington Walls, if I remember correctly, is a little wobbly. It's not a perfected circle, and so anything that would be derived off of it may be off, unless you were having somebody stand at the center and had a cord of an exact certain length, and then they were to get to that point too. But onward. Professor Vincent Gaffney, a leading archaeologist on the subject, said there's an unprecedented find of major significance within the UK. Key, key researchers on Stonehenge and its landscape have been taken aback by the scale of the structure and the fact that it hadn't been discovered till now so close to Stonehenge. And people have looked so many times around for different things, and whenever they found Woodhenge and all these other places, people went like crazy finding them. And every little hill and mound that just looks conspicuous actually is something. It's amazing. In fact, I wanted to do a video. I'll probably do it now since we're over in Celtic lands, blah blah blah, land of the Druids. But just near Stonehenge, there's a series of monuments that lay out. People have tried to say that it lays out like the planets and all these other things, but just north of it, there was this other stuff too. And just here, I mean, it's like you get on Google Maps and you're just all over these places. And the thing is, 7 out of 10 of them are unexcavated or unknown, unreported. What? Yep. Well, you know, and there's 3 or 4 in this one spot, and they ain't doing nothing about it or whatever, and so that adds up because there's 3 here and 1 there, and da da da. So like Stonehenge is 1, but this cluster of them that I'm talking about over here, nobody gives a crap about. It's on this guy's private land. He just wanted to tear it all up, and he farms around the damn things. But yeah, it's strange, and politics comes into it, and all kinds of things, guys. But so let's look at the way this looks here. So they're showing you here that it's a vast 4,500-year-old pit structure discovered circling Stonehenge's neighbor at Durrington Walls. I don't believe they've correctly dated this thing at this point. From what I understand, all these pits are filled in. In fact, that original picture may be of where a pit was. You know, although they've got stumps going everywhere, it looks more like a wood hinge situation. But that most of these are either filled in or they have water in them. So they're like little ponds, but they're lined out. And if you look at the picture over here on the right, we're looking at Durrington Walls, and right below it is Woodhenge, which you see here, which is about the size, and let's go down a little more. Now we have Stonehenge right here, right? Here's Salisbury Plain, come up here through the River Avon, here's the whip around. Well, they're showing you all these red dots here, and they don't quite line up here. And something made me want to start thinking maybe it's another circle built on Woodhenge and it's crossing in. And I see on the land a spot that's just right there. Let me move away from it. You can, I don't know if that's just an artifact or whatever, but it may actually be another circle or something. Strangely, if we take out that group of them, this is a little wobbly too, but if we take out that group of them, every other one is either on this side or on that side of this line, and it goes all the way around. Now, where it's missing one is this is definitely off scale, and that might have something to do with it, and I wonder what it's pointing to and so on. But these others are all right internal to it, all the way around it. And they say it's they're an average of 864 meters from Durrington Wall's hinge, but I don't know, it kind of goes wobbly, and I bet if you took that 864 meters and turned it into feet, you'll end up at 2,384 or whatever the sacred geometry number is. Just something tells me that. Well, something tells me too some of them are going to be off because you got these right here. So what is that? Just need to look a little bit more here and find it, because they say that 40% of them can't be messed with, or what projected is 40% of them. Well, there sure should be some more of them right down the line right here. And then in this part, which looks like a golf course is built into it or something, hell. And then, of course, Durrington itself, it just cuts right through the middle of the town. So 1/4 of the pie is that, and then this other guy's land. I don't see any marks onto here, but it's there too. And if I'm familiar with this spot, and I think I am, there's some stuff down in these people's land too that looks like artifacts. It's not necessarily Stonehenge circles, but there's some people's stuff down in there, looking at Google Earth and pictures and stuff like that. And don't know if you noticed it, but there's a huge hex right here. Yeah, and if you remember my video here recently, it showed alignments and how there was the church of the brother Thomas, the brother of Jesus Christ, supposedly, and then there's this huge pentagram all around it and all kinds of things. This is laid out on a huge scale all over the place. And once you start hooking them up together, and then realize that even they're hooked up on this scale and the sacred geometry, but then to each other, they are hooked up that way too. It starts to become a lot larger of a thing, you know, an undeniable concept and idea. Each shaft is more than 5 meters deep and 10 meters in diameter. So shown here is compared with the largest trilithon at Stonehenge. No, they don't have trilithons in them, although there might be a dead body in them, because they quite often did that with other ones and stuff. But being that it's hooked up with the area of life, I would think not. In fact, they might have been used for water or whatever, but it's showing you in comparison what it would take if just the largest trilithons are in there. All the other ones would be under submerged and you wouldn't see it. But why would somebody do that with trilithons? Well, they didn't. But they built this pit that's pretty much in representation of a person this size. And they've got like 20 have been found. Okay, so 20 have been found located in an average of 864 meters. But there would be over 40 of them if they found them all. Because leaving out this side and all on that side shows you something's missing. And you know how Stonehenge has the little inner circle and the circle and then the outer circle? Well, if you look at this, we have the inner circle and the other circle, the outer circle, but it's at a different representation. So is there another circle out that's farther? Is Stonehenge somehow in a circle? And if you were to take that and you were to circle it all the way around, would you find other places that were on that larger circle? And how in the hell would these people be doing this? Are you telling me people had mile-long ropes and things like that going on to be able to pull off a circle? You know, you hold on to them and they just go around you in a circle, you know, but this, it would require, if you took some army guy and they've got this whole thing where they work with maps and doing all that, and he'd have to have all of that and his compass and everything to get within 10, 15, 20 foot and be able to realize what he's looking at. Whenever you have something like this that's a blind situation, when you get to Stonehenge, you're not getting a good sign of where that is. Well, if they had a fire lit, maybe you could see it. Aha! And does that line up with where certain things come up and stuff? And there starts to be all kinds of sacred geometry cosmos. And what's really going on here, people, is that they are marrying the heavens to the earth with symbology and stuff, and that sounds all romantic and everything, but in reality this is the type of thing that led to civilization becoming super advanced, because not only does it do the seasons so they know when to plant and everything that goes along with it, but there also started to be a lot of religion developed on the stars and things that happened in the way that it went, and stories go along with it that turn into mythology, that turn into now pagan things. Right, let's just go on. Durrington Shaft's discovery, announced on Monday, is all the more extraordinary because it offers the first evidence that the early inhabitants of Britain, mainly farming communities, had developed a way to count. Constructing something of this size with such careful positioning of its features could only have been done by tracking hundreds of paces. Well, it requires more than that, and then there has to be a perfecting of a standard of pace. And you'd have people, if you've ever played golf, what I understand from this is golf. And I understood whenever I was a kid that I almost couldn't take a big enough pace to be a yard. When we were out with my dad and he's pacing off stuff, it took him, he's 6 foot tall, it took him a good concerted step. He's not just walking along, no, he just, okay, and step and step and step and everything. And how does that work out? And I remember going on the football field and everything and doing the walk and everything and going, that's just about right on. Okay, it's more like this. And pulling it off. And you try to see how far you were or everything. Well, if you don't know, on a golf course, there'll be a marker out there that's 250 on a par 5, 250 yards to the hole from after your drives hit way behind you, or 200 yards or 150 yards. But say you're looking back and you see the 200 and up here you see the 150, and you can mentally go, man, I'm about 168, 170. Stop right there. You can take and start your pace and walk up to the 150 marker. If you want to, you can do it on the way back to verify, but you should. And that's what you see people do. They walk out with this thing, and the guy's got a pamphlet type deal that has all the holes on it, and he's put down marks and knows where everything is. And of course, on most of these golf courses, any of those sprinkler heads on there tell you how much it is, but to the center of the green. Now there's to the center of the green, but then there's where the pin is today, because it's not in the center of the green. So they have that little idea. Then they go off the idea of how hard you have to hit it, or exactly to be at least land on the green and not be short. And so they have to pick the club that does this and that and work with the wind and everything else. There's a whole lot of complex to it. But this pacing situation, well, there were people that used to do this for a living pretty much. In fact, Eratosthenes had somebody pace off from Syene to Sais in Egypt, because he found a shadow and they didn't find one there. Once he verified that, he said, well, it's about 7 degrees, but how far is that? Because I can figure out, if they knew the world was round, how far that arc would be. Comes out to close to 40,000 miles, and that's within a small measure, a percentage of what it took us a long time to get this figured out, even better than that situation right there. But of course, I've talked about how the Sumerians knew that it was round and other things about it too. But shafts are vast, each more than 5 meters deep and 10 meters in diameter. Approximately 20 have been found, and there may have been more than 30. About 40% of the circle is no longer available for study as a consequence of modern development. So if they've already found this, and then they say 40% of it's not there, yeah, you can get over 40 of them probably. More than 30 for sure. But I guess that's saying that, well, they know some areas apparently have gaps. They can't find anything. But if you looked real close, right, and centered in on it and got to a ground penetrating deal go onto it, you'd be like, yeah, there's where it's right here. It's just right over here. Just right over here from where we thought it would. And we're within not far. The size of the shaft and circuit surrounding Durrington walls is currently unique. It demonstrates the significance of Durrington Wall's hinge, the complexity of the monumental structures within Stonehenge landscapes, and the capacity and desire of Neolithic communities to record their cosmological belief systems in ways and at a scale that we had never previously anticipated. And it keeps going. And you say, well, look at these circles and these things and everything. Look at the size of Göbekli Tepe at 10,000 years ago, or well more than double at that same time in its complexity. And there's no animals carved on these things like there is there too, but bam, it's still there, and it already shows sacred geometry at that date. So how old does it get to be? Because we figured out the Sumerians had trigonometry and everything. Oh no, it goes back before that. It seems to come onto the world like popcorn and pow. And the Bible tries to kind of relate that situation, but in reality it didn't come on so pow and not so right here, but more way back then. We'll get into that a lot more in other videos. I'll keep going in left field if I don't stop. Here's a view from it, and man, up until I was a kid, you could just walk right out there to it, and people would go and have picnics and sit on these things and have a bottle of wine sitting right there and do all these things and stuff. But then, oh no. And they took in, I don't know if you know, but they rebuilt it. They actually took in, some of these were sinking into the ground and starting to lean a little bit and everything. So they took and lifted them back up and smacked the ground real hard and put them right back down where they were supposed to be. And so now they're percented a little more. They didn't have to do all of them to do that, just the ones that were starting to screw up. And everybody said, well, why didn't they take the ones that were down and line them up and make an area? That wasn't the point. The point was we didn't want the rest of it to fall down. Some of these ones, like the one in the center and the back there, you see it's all kind of hooked up with the trilithons going across the top and stuff, right? And they're hooked up. So if one started to go down, it would start pulling the other ones down, and and they didn't want any of this to go on. And they want people to see it thousands and thousands of years from now. So they just took them and pushed them back upright. But then you had to tamp the soil and everything. Well, done correctly. So they didn't have to come back and do this 10 years later. And we didn't do this one right. And look at it going, Ngh. They fixed them somewhat like that. People still argue and bitch about that. The site is 1.9 miles northeast of Stonehenge on Salisbury Plain. He added that he can't emphasize enough the effort that would have had to gone into digging such large shafts if you're to believe they did it with tools of stone, wood, and bone. But then these are the same people who also built Stonehenge, dragging bluestones to the site from southwest Wales about 150 miles away and across water, where Merlin was meant to make the stones light as wood. And what the hell does that all mean? Well, wood floats. So they took them into the water and floated them over with wood attached to them and enough wood to displace it and get them over there. And even though you figured out Merlin's magic, that's a hell of a thing. It would be a hell of a thing nowadays to get enough group together and pull one of these things 100 yards. They've had people try to do it and try to make little rollers and all kinds of stuff. People gave up long ago on the bullshit. There was a desire and a knowledge and a want of people in ancient days, and that tries to be taken out of humanity somehow, like it's not a part of the human. While Stonehenge was positioned in relation to solstices, or the extreme limits of the sun's movement and the moon's, Gaffney said the newly discovered circulation shape suggests a huge cosmological statement and the need to inscribe it into the earth. And as I said before, what this is really doing is this is marrying the cosmos to the earth and everything, and God made the everything, and looky and here, and we're marking it out. It's funny, people have studied and they put all this stuff together and everything, but it would be amazing if aliens are the way that we think they were, that whenever they came down, their little landing gear as they went down and psh, like on the old Boston album cover, caused little imprints into the ground and stuff. These aren't so little imprints. Yeah, well, this mothership ain't so little either. But that's the reason they did everything. Oh, I bet Ancient Aliens is just dying to make a show about it. But in reality, I don't think that's really going on. But you look at the expanse and the size of this, and then people can easily bring about saying something along that line, right? But these statements are something that are able to be 5,000 years ago or more, able to be discerned by people. It's hard to believe in the in-between we kind of lost it all. Oh, and it's bad. Can't you see that it's Satan and wrong to have pillars lined up for when the sun comes up? Well, at one time it was. And they killed the person that said the earth wasn't at the center of everything, too. And as we've worked through it, those amazing Caucasians have done a lot. Let's continue. He added, Stonehenge has a clear link to the seasons and the passage of time through the summer solstice. But with the Durrington shafts, it's not the passing of time, but the bounding of a circle of shafts, which has cosmological significance. The boundary may have guided its people towards a sacred site within its center, or warned against entering it. What if it wasn't anything like that? What if it was pits that they were to have water in, and then the Lady of the Lake was a symbology that went with it all, and it had to do with life and the waters of life and things and da-da-da. What if it went with that, and it wasn't a boundary saying no or yes? I'm sure somebody's going to say that it was where they trapped animals. Yeah, they'd run into this pit. It's half full of water. They can't swim forever. They'd die, and then somebody'd go in there and yank it out, and you'd have, is that what you're going to go with? Or, because it's funny, they have to make this special design all lined up to things just for that. I've heard all kinds of things. You remember that picture we were looking at just a minute ago with the lady next to the shaft, and it was just barely sticking up above the ground? Did you know that at Easter Island, that's the way they are, and there's actually a whole body there, and everybody thought it was, oh, it's just a bust from like the shoulders and up, right? You know, like a bust? No, no, no. Busted, it's the, oh my God, it's a whole statue. Yeah, and there's markings on the back of it and everything, and these funny boats. Yeah. That's not about this, though. The boundary may have guided people towards the sacred site within its center or warned against entering it. Or it could be a lot more. Tell me what you think down in there. What significance a shaft that was, you know, that 5 meters across, 5 meters deep, or 10 meters across, 5 meters deep, what significance that would have had. And the shafts don't look like they were walk downable, like it was a baptizing thing or anything like that. Of course, they haven't, I don't think, really excavated these yet. As the area around Stonehenge is among the world's most studied archaeological landscapes, don't do this to me. I get 10 minutes and then it tries to pull it off. Really? Now you're going to show me the picture. That is cool. Gotta love that shot. Gotta love the ads that all pop up again. See if I can get back in here. Whee! Yeah, that's interesting how it's pulling off this line, goes around here, circle. That's just remarkable. There's that picture again. So, as the area around Stonehenge is among the world's most studied archaeological landscapes, the discovery is all the more unexpected. Having filled naturally over a millennia, the shafts, although enormous, have been dismissed as natural sinkholes and little dew ponds. The latest technology, including geophysical prospection, ground-penetrating radar, and magnetometry, showed them as geophysical anomalies and revealed their true significance. Gaffney said, "We're starting to see things we could never see through standard archaeology, things we could not imagine." Based at the University of Bradford, he is the co-principal investigator of the Stonehenge Hidden Landscape Project, which has been surveying tens of kilometers of landscape across Salisbury Plain. Archaeologists are now joining the dots and seeing this massive pattern, he said. Coring of the shafts has provided a crucial radiocarbon dating to more than 4,500 years ago, making the boundary contemporary with both Stonehenge and Durrington walls. And you think, well, it's got to be around that same time, huh? But the boundary also appears to have been laid out to include an earlier prehistoric monument, the Lark Hill Causeway enclosure, built more than 1,500 years before the henge at Durrington, or Stonehenge itself, they're saying. I'm going to go back up here and look at where that is, because it's the only thing I didn't talk about when we looked at the picture. But the missing spot right here is where they have the Lark Hill Causeway enclosure. And there's also a giant causeway somewhere up under this picture that runs. There's a few different things. And look at this arch pattern that's right below the speech that's right here. And over here there's a hex. And over here there's a what? And man, even though the farm is all over the top of it and cut in little cubes, if you wait till it just starts raining or does something, all of a sudden, poof, they show up. That's just amazing. So, you know, they've been doing this for a while. Whenever I was a kid, it became this thing, and there started being people doing this constantly, looking for this type of stuff, right? Well, oddly enough, 40 years later, they're going, wow, did you know they have this here and there and there? And, well, we saw those dew ponds and this, that, and the other. Well, we got 20 of them here, and they line up to this exact circle. It's got this sacred geometry all hooked up around the what? Yeah, keep going and try to hook it up together, because that's what that other guy did, and he found pentagrams and all kinds of weird things that, oh, you don't want to know about. Ooh, struck flint and unidentified bone fragments were recovered from the shafts, but archaeologists can only speculate how those features were once used. So if they're finding struck flint and unidentified bone fragments. Is it animals? Are they trash heaps and they're slowly using them as the city dump, one by one, going around? Well, no, that'd probably have a whole bunch of stuff that's identifiable in it. Gaffney said, what we're seeing is two massive monuments with their territories. Other archaeologists, including Michael Parker Pearson at the University College of London, have suggested that while Stonehenge with standing stones was an area for the dead, Durrington with its wooden structures was for the living. You're right. Now you're getting the idea and how they all work together, and Samhain and the ritual that was done here and what is what. Right. He added that while numerous ancient civilizations had counting systems, the evidence lies primarily in texts in various forms that they left behind. The planning involved in contracting and prehistoric structure of this size must have involved a tally or counting system, he believes. Positioning each shaft would have involved pacing more than 800 meters from the hinge outward. And that's kind of strange, but also he would have, there he's also denying on counting systems and things like that. And then there's alignments too that people would be going with. Surely you're having to count steps and do all these other things. But if we can get past, let me just say it this way. We can get past the fact that, of course, these people can count, add, and multiply and do things real well. There's a lot of sacred geometry all hooked up into it. Well, they can count to 10. Well, can they make that 100? So see a little circle? See a huge one? That's really what it's showing us. Now, it makes you start wondering if there aren't any things like this around some of the other monuments and other things along ley lines that people used to be sensitive more to in some ways than people are nowadays. The research has involved a consortium of archaeologists led by the University of Bradford and including the universities of Birmingham and St. Andrews in an international collaboration with the Ludwig Boltzmann Institute for Archaeological Prospection and Virtual Archaeology at the University of Vienna in Austria. Henry Chapman, professor of archaeology at Birmingham University, described it as an incredible new monument, and Rich Bates, a geoscientist at St. Andrews University, said it offered an insight to the past that shows an even more complex society than we could ever imagine. And if they throw one more university at me, I'm going to puke. But the consortium is publishing a scientific open access paper in Internet Archaeology. The discovery makes up for the cancellation of this year's summer solstice celebrations at Stonehenge on the 20th of June. Due to the ban on mass gatherings prompted by COVID, archaeologists have another reason to rejoice after the rediscovery nearby of a giant Neolithic structure. And I would say it doesn't make up for it at all. And hey, y'all, on the 19th, it does kind of still come up through that line, but it didn't just like right in the middle about the time it's at head height. Hey, on the next day, comes up through there too. It does it for days and days before it starts to veer out of it. So you could have just went ahead and went on the 21st, or are they just banning the whole thing? Well, the funny thing is, I saw a bunch of cops that were there, bobbies, whatever you want to call them, y'all. And they all had masks on, and they were able to stand around and talk and walk through the monuments and do all this stuff, but people can't go. And it's like, well, is there a limit or something? Because there's 25 cops or whatever here, and so if they just walked out and stood there 6 feet apart, could 20 of us go and then go out and then oh my God. Oh, don't go to the beach and stand 6 foot apart. You'd have to be, it's weird. It's weird. We'll always remember this as something like that. So, man, I likes me some Stonehenge. But I likes me some other monuments too, and there are so many of them. And it's a Stonehenge of da-da-da. Well, it's that famous, guys, but also there's these same people made all around the world. It's amazing. Look at that shot again. So they can't look at downtown very much, but I wonder how much investigation they've done right through here and from here down to here. Wonder how much. I'll keep up with this if I can. Let you know whatever happens out of it. They do some more core shafts, all of a sudden there'll be something happen, so then they'll pump the thing out and they'll check it out. It might make them want to go back to the other place, because just popping a couple of cores isn't necessarily going to hit it, right? Yeah, the place could be full of gold balls as big as a bowling ball, and you wouldn't have hit a damn one of them with your 2 or 3 cores. So you have no idea what might be there. Yep. What if they found a mammoth carcass? Wouldn't that just throw a wind into a... Yep. Well, let me know what y'all think here. And grab a like if you liked it. And we'll go on here. Stonehenge, hey. Peace.